Hello students, welcome to our today lecture. In our today lecture we are going to discuss that what is Chow test and why it is used. Basically Chow test is used to test whether there are structural breaks in the dataset or not. So it is commonly used in econometrics to test for structural breaks in dataset, and structural breaks may be exist due to policy changes, economic crisis, or there are war in countries. So these all things bring structural breaks in the dataset. So in order to check either there exist structural breaks in the dataset or not, we use Chow test. And why it is used to detect structural breaks, group comparison, and it also used for model stability. And what are the null and alternative hypothesis for the Chow test? Null hypothesis for the Chow test is that there is no structural breaks, and alternative hypothesis or H1 is there is structural breaks. So how we reject or accept the null or alternative hypothesis? The decision rule is that if p-value is less than 0.05, then we will reject H0. So now let's do the estimation, and then we will see that either there are structural breaks in the dataset or not. So for that we have to open our Eviews file. Then we have to copy all of our dataset into Eviews. Here is my dataset, and I have to bring my all dataset into Eviews file. So I have to go to file, new file, work file. I have to mention the start and end date of my dataset here. So then paste your all of dataset here. Then let's suppose we want to see there are structural breaks in GDP or not. Then double click on GDP, go to view and go to graphs, and go by all these default options, click on OK. Here you can see that this point to this point, and after this point to this point, we can see that there are structural breaks in the data set. So now we will examine or verify it by another two tests like sum of square test and Chow break test. So for that we have to first of all estimate this equation. So we have to go to quick, then estimate equation, then write your dependent and independent variable here, then click OK, then go to view, then go to stability test, then go to recursive estimates, then go to sum of square test, click on OK. So here the guideline is that if this blue line remains within the critical region of two red lines, so it means that model is stable and there is no structural breaks in the data or in the model. But if this blue line crosses these red lines, so it means that there are structural breaks in the model or the dataset. So as you can see that in from this point to this point, our blue line is cut or away or cross the red line. So it means there are structural breaks in the dataset. So for example, this is our year 2002 and 2003. So we want to verify that either there are structural breaks in the dataset in time period 2003 or not. So for that we have to go to view, then go to stability and go to Chow breakpoint test. So here you have to mention the year in which you want to test that either there are structural breaks in the dataset or not. So for example, we are interested to see that either in year 2003 there are structural breaks in the dataset or not. So we have to mention year 2003, then click on OK. So here are the F statistic value, and we have to compare this probability value. Now I will bring my this test to my that file where I have written the null and alternative hypothesis. So here these are my results for null and alternative hypothesis. So here you can see that null hypothesis state that there is no structural breaks, and alternative hypothesis there is structural breaks. And what was the guideline? The guideline was that if p value is less than 0.05, we have to reject h naught. So in our case, our probability value for f stat is 0.01, which is less than 0.05. So we have to reject h naught, and it means that we have to accept h1 alternative hypothesis. So it means there are structural breaks in our data set. So this is how you can see that either there are structural breaks in your data set or not. So for this purpose we use Chow test.